Welcome to Secure the Bag Africa's African Thought Leadership webinar series, where we bring together industry leaders, speakers, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, coaches, and consultants to contribute to the African body of knowledge. Augustinus Ngombe is a certified agile leader, administrator, thought leader, teacher, entrepreneur, author, and public speaker. He's the founder of Generational Focus Leadership and Entrepreneurship Hub. He's passionate about helping people along their self-discovery journeys so that they can become empowered, informed, inspired, and equipped to deliver to the best of their ability in the various areas of their lives. So today we are going to be talking about performance management systems, but before we get into that, please tell us who you are, what you're about, what you love.
Right. I think Christine had spoken a little bit or more about me. I'm not quite sure if it was a little bit exaggerated when she said a leadership expert and the author, and that yes, I am an author of leadership and knowledge, a speaker on the issues of leadership and knowledge, entrepreneurship, and emotional intelligence. I am a teacher by profession, a trainer. At some point, I do facilitate and moderate discussions. And I love singing. I love writing. I love listening to different conversations that pertains growth and development. And yeah, I'm just passionate about life in general.
So Augustinus, basically, I didn't even say enough.
No, you said more than enough. That's why I couldn't say much. You know, I could take longer than that.
Well, Augustinus, once again, thanks for joining us. Today, we're talking about one of the topics that is really close to your heart, especially from a leadership perspective and in the African context, and that is the importance of performance management systems. And we're not just speaking about it from a technical perspective, but we're also talking about ourselves, you know, in our roles, whether we are in leadership or, you know, we are subordinates, management, whatever we're doing. Why is it so important to have a system that manages your performance, Augustinus?
Well, thank you for having to choose such a great topic, and particularly a topic that is closer to my heart. I believe it's also closer to each and everyone's heart. First of all, before we delve into why is that topic very important, I think we need to find out or define what this performance management system is. So performance management system is a system that fast-tracks the progress one makes in the role or functions which is given. Are they doing it as per the job description that they are given? That is, if the person is employed. And if it's an individual, are you doing it based on the purpose which God has created you for? And now you can already see that before we answer the reason why, we should find out if you know your purpose or if you have a career. So the first step of having to understand the reason why performance management system is important, it's for us to discover who we are, our purpose, our goal, our vision. What do we want to achieve in life? What do we want to achieve at our employment? Now, if we have set goals and we want to achieve them in a set time, so then we need to find out as to what progress are we making on an hourly basis, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, quarterly, and then annual basis, and it goes on. So the importance of this is to ensure that you are in line with your goals that you have set earlier, or you are in line with the purpose that you were meant to really fulfill.
Thanks for that opening, Augustinus. But realistically, let's paint a picture of what it's like to be in a workplace, right? You
Yes.
have your role, you are reporting to whoever is in authority. And then, of course, you have the HR department sitting there,
Yes.
checking out your KPIs and, working out bonuses and things like that.
Yes.
At what
Yes.
point, because you've mentioned purpose, at what point does the desire for excellence actually kick in? Where you sit as Augustinus and you say, you know what? Beyond what I've been told to do, there has to be so much more that can indicate that I'm actually performing.
Well, it begins when you understand that the job is performed by you, and you are an individual before you are in a company. So if you are an individual and you are employed, you are given a job description, and you know that you are having a purpose to fulfill within that set role that you are given, then you will understand that you better deliver in order for the company to bring together individual performances to make it as a collective performance of that specific company. Now, the importance of this is that, when you give it all, when you give it the best, the company and you benefit greatly, where you benefit or you reap the benefit of getting to acquire skills which you have not had initially, because as you perform the task, you get to learn certain methods, certain approach, certain ways of doing things than if you were doing it traditionally to just pass time.
And Augustinus, as a trainer and, somebody who is working for an organization yourself, what are
Yes.
some of the things, especially negative things, negative attitudes that you've seen that hamper personal progress and then make it difficult for you to actually manage somebody's performance?
The negative things is mainly caused by ourselves, because most of the time we feel that we are doing things for the company, but forgetting that whatever we do, it is something that is initiated within us, and when we carry it out in a certain way, so not only the company that gets the best service delivery, but you also grow, you position yourself to be identified as an asset, not only to your company, but to the companies out there or to other businesses out there which may need certain skills such as what you have. So now, if you think that you only wake up to go to work and do things for a company, then you are mistaken, because what you know, the company can take away from. And remember, our growth comes from our deliberate steps which we take. Should you be an accountant, you will need some soft skills that will make you more effective than other accountants in order for you to be more competent. If you are a teacher, you may be teaching the same subject with other teachers, but then what makes you stand out? It's that deliberate decision that you make to say, let me learn how to use Zoom. Let me learn how to um, use PowerPoint presentation. Let me learn how to use email to communicate with learners, so that my time is not only limited to my classroom, but I could also be able to reach out to the learners and parents in order for me to engage with them on a critical activities and role which is required of us to be able to fulfill our goals as teaching and learning.
I mean, based on what you're saying, Augustinus, what I'm taking is that there's a desire for us to start pushing ourselves. Why don't we
Yes.
want to push ourselves? Because it's so easy to say, okay, for example, you're giving the example of teaching, and, the COVID era has shown us that there's always a solution. Why are we
Yes.
so resistant to thinking out of the box and pushing ourselves?
we are limited by the traditional and conventional thinking, where we are taught that if you are employed, then you are doing things for other people. But the reality should be taught on the other side, that you do it for yourself before others. Because whatever good or bad that you do, the consequences doesn't come to a group. It always single you out to say, if you are giving mediocre, the first target of employers, particularly when it's crisis, it's individuals who have not found a way to improve themselves. The individuals who have not valued performance management, they fall to be victims of retrenchment. They fall to be victims of getting to be dismissed from work, because any organization that is effective and functional do not want to keep a liability. Rather, it wants to keep an asset. What value are you bringing to the company? This value can only be identified if you are not conventional, but intentional in positioning yourself in a way of making yourself better on a daily basis. And this is possible through performance management system that starts with self.
So, Augustinus, basically, you're also saying that it's not enough for me to just do my job or just focus on my task, not thinking about improving, but sometimes, now you're mentioning retrenchments. And when companies are scaling down, they also want to keep the best assets. They want to keep the most high value people. So it sounds to me, what you're saying is that it's not even enough to just say, I just do what I do. At least I'm doing my part, and that's it. You need to be striving to be more.
It's not enough. When you are in a company, position yourself to an extent where the company does not imagine its existence without you. And that can't happen when you give average. It happens when you give something outstanding, something exceptional. You need to go out of your way. And not only the question that you said that, I do not only need to rely on my day-to-day role, but I should also dare people that you should not rely on your university qualification. The danger of this is that when you are done with the university, some of the skills you have acquired are already outdated. So when you enter the job, you enter with at least 60 or 50% of what you have learned. The other percentage that remains are the things you will intentionally do to improve yourself, because life is not on a standstill. It keeps moving, it keeps changing, and when it changes, it demands new skills, new approaches, new methods of dealing with whatever job that you do.
Now, Augustinus, the question is, how do I become excellent and relevant? How do I create my own personal performance management system, not just relying on the organization or the department I'm working for?
The first step is to approach it from self-leadership. You need to lead yourself. When you position yourself as a leader of yourself, what you do first is you do scanning. You scan your environment. You find out your weaknesses, your strength. You find out your opportunities, and you find out your threats. So once you have done this scanning, then you will identify your strength and then keep improving it. And your weaknesses, you keep researching to find out what you could do to reduce them. Because if you will never be at the position where you do not have a weakness at all. But what you can do to yourself is to pursue knowledge that can fix the loopholes Each time you see the loopholes, it's your duty to be able to find out what you can do in order to fix it. Now, by doing so, you will help yourself establish your individual performance management system. In a way, we are saying there should be a self-evaluation and there should be self-monitoring. Don't wait for the supervisor to tell you you are messing up here. Rather, surprise that supervisor to go ahead of them by being proactive before they even find out that this new software, which the company had acquired, can be approached this way. Find another easy method that you can use and that you are able to pass on to others. Because only in helping others you become more valuable to that organization. Because then the company will know if we remove him, the company will not only miss him, but the other people who depended on him will suffer. So as to say, the collective result of the company will be reduced.
Augustinus, what about aligning yourself to the organizational objectives? I wonder how many of us actually know and understand the mandate of the companies that we work for, you know?
Yes.
And just the entire strategy, where do you fit in? Because you're talking about performance management, starting with self-leadership. You're talking about being relevant, somebody who is of such high value that they don't want to get rid of you.
Yes.
So at what point do you start aligning what you do to the organizational objectives so that you really are relevant?
If we define leadership in the context of strategic management or strategic leadership, would say is a leader is someone who takes the goals and objective of the company and influence others to marry these goals and objectives to make it as if it's their own in order for them to fulfill the mandate of the company. Now, the reason why I have approached it from the self-leadership is after you have been appointed in a certain position, the first thing you would want to do is to find out if you are fit for that specific role. That's why now self-evaluation and scanning comes in. You find out in this position which I'm given, in this role which I'm playing, what are my weaknesses? How am I able to achieve the goals and objectives of the company? You wouldn't be able to come to that point until you do environmental scanning or self-evaluation. So now once you have established your weaknesses, your strengths, your opportunities and threats, then what you will do is to be able to find ways and means on how to fix that which you do not have in order for you to become effective in delivering the goals and objective of the company on time with efficiency or excellency and in a way that makes you to become exceptional to the employer and your co-workers.
Thank you for that, Augustinus. Let's look now at leadership, especially in the African context. Every single country in Africa is always talking about performance management systems, especially at government level. And then we talk about service delivery and we talk about productivity. What is your take on leadership, performance management systems in the African context?
I think our performance management system in the African context is compromised in a way that before we talk about performance management system, we should talk about the pillars of good governance. You need to be transparent. You need to have integrity. You need to be accountable. And the list goes on and on and on. If we do not have good governance, it will be a cheap talk, chit chat that we are making to sound good or to look good on the paper while we are cheating on ourselves. So performance management system in Africa can only begin to rise up, if we begin to acknowledge, to accept that we have been robbing from ourselves by being dishonest, by being biased. Let's look at the HR. You know, you are there as an HR partner of a certain ministry, or an HR for a certain parastatal. Now, you as an HR, you decide there's a person who fit to be in this position based on their performance, but you would rather ignore that to hire someone that you know based on your emotional attachments to this person or to the personal relationships that you've had. Now, in the end, it undermines performance management system immediately, because you know that the person who is employed is not going to give you the best, but you are comfortable of having someone who doesn't perform based on the personal relationship. So now this is as a disease, a cancer that we have in our politics, in our business, and in any operations which we have, which undermines our ability to emerge above the expectation of our peers, of our counterparts in other parts of the world.
You're also making me think about the fact that there's often a lack of accountability, right?
Yes.
So not only are you not performing, you're getting away with not meeting these key performance indicators, and then there is no accountability. When it comes to governance, what sort of solutions would you propose? Let's take a government department, for example, right? Where we often do complain about service, accountability, productivity. Where do you start? Are you going to start at leadership level, or are you starting at the personal level, realistically?
We should address it on both. We are saying when you are employed in the public sector as a citizen of a certain country, I think you should sit down and understand as who you are. If you really are proud of being a Namibian, being a Kenyan, Ugandan, or whatever citizenship that you carry. Now, when you are in the office, let me say you are in the office to be able to carry out the role of maybe an engineer in Ministry of Transport, Works and Transport. What you should understand is that whatever you do affects the whole country, not only the people who are living now, but many generations to come. But what we have seen is that when we are employed in the public sector, we get to relax every excellency which we have in order for us to give mediocre. And the service delivery in government, I don't know what word that fits, but it's a pity that, you know, wherever you hear of poor service delivery, then what comes in your mind is the public sector. But the question is why? It's because we do not understand that if you compromise public sector, then you compromise the quality of lives of people. Now, on the other parts of the world, the public sector are held accountable, and they make sure that if you enter into that public office, you are held accountable and you ensure that there's a consistency. And now we can compare and see that the difference between us and the first world is not necessarily having more resources, but our mindset towards the functions which we are given, the roles which we are given. How serious do we take it? Do we stand and say, I want to contribute to this country. I don't want to wait for the country to do the best for me, but I would rather go in the office and give the best to the country so that these generations and the generations to come are to benefit greatly, because the only permanent asset of any nation is the public service which are offered to their own people. If their public services offered are of poor quality, then the quality of lives of those people will never be of a good quality, but also of poor quality.
And when it comes to the leadership, because you're saying, in other countries, people are held accountable. It's a very serious thing to be working for government. What do we need to do in Africa in terms of accountability? Why is it that you have departments where people can literally disappear for a week, just coming in, putting their jacket on their chair, and they're out? Something that should take an afternoon can take 2 weeks, or you're just told the person who deals with this, the person who can stamp or endorse this is on leave, right?
Yes. I think we need to yet go back to school and understand the word politics. I have seen that most Africans fail because we do not clearly understand the word politics. We think politics is about lying. Politics is about doing wrong things, but politics is about leadership. Really, if we defend the wrong as politicians, if we defend the wrongs as leaders who are entrusted the role by the masses, and we keep on being dishonest, we can imagine how the catastrophe that we can cause through that ignorance of the reality of life. Because now, how do we address accountability? If someone would disappear for a week, had a backup of a politician, a high office to back them up to stay in the office, while others who are doing what is right are frustrated by the same person who is defending the wrong. And at the end of the day, we want our countries to perform. It cannot happen. Or else, if it's not the high politician, you are, for instance, a director in a certain government agency, and you have favored some of the people under your supervision. And this person can mess up and you do nothing. But then others, if they make any small single mistake, you either frustrate them or you fire them. Now, if we put together the impact of this approach or this toxic mindset, we'll find out that our countries do not perform because of our lack of understanding of leadership, of performance management, of good governance. And this is why both the people who are subordinates and the people who are leading, who are having the same mindset, cannot resolve any problem, because we do not understand that nations are only priding in the people who live within it.
Very powerful point, Augustina. So as we wrap up, I'd like you to give 3 tips for leaders or the leadership and management when it comes to enforcing performance management systems. What are your 3 tips?
My 3 tips is that leaders must understand that change is permanent to all of us. And for the sake of change, we should encourage ourselves and the people in our care to continuously work hard to be able to grow with the skills that is demanded by the change that takes place. Secondly, we need to be honest with ourselves. There's no organizations which was established to fail, but the mindset of people make any viable organization or business to fail. Our take as Africans is that, are we doing what is expected of us to be done? Are we honest enough to sit down and say, here we are going wrong, we need to correct it? Or we hide under blaming others? I think that is a bit childish for me, to always find fault in other people and never finding fault in ourselves. Because in as much as others are contributing to our failures, I want to borrow the ideas of Professor PLO Lumumba, who said that ignorance is the biggest industry. You know, other nations pride into having Africa being a beggar. You know, when they see you begging, they pride into it, because there's an organization now as we sit that is in United States, that is in China, that is in UK, that is in all those powerful countries, that is looking for an opportunity to get all the millions. They go there with the pictures of hungry children, these sheikhs, and then say, give me money so that I go and save Africa. But what they do is they take 95% and they bring 5%. That is if you are lucky. But they bring here 2% and 98% they invested in living a lavish life. So for us to be able to resolve that, we need to start, or we need to begin to be honest with ourselves and instill strong governance system, accountability, integrity. We need to be transparent. These are not done for other nations to praise us, but they are done for the goodness of ourselves. The last thing that we can do is performance management system is not a one-day thing. It needs to be continuously. The supervisors need to play their role. You are not there to shout at people. You are not there to frustrate people. You are not there to tell people, I'm not going to give you a leave because I don't like you. But your supervisory role is there to identify those weaknesses and help those people who are under your care to continuously improve. This is why learning should not stop. You know, they should be, we need to strengthen the in-service training, particularly in public sectors, and appreciate people who are doing well. I do not understand when I see in public sector, particularly, that people who get promoted are those people who are bribing the HR, people who are friends to the big people, but then we are undermining people who can innovate, people who are able to lead strategic positions. So if we do all these things, then we undermine our quality of life, because when people rank Namibia as a poor country and there's a huge inequality in between, they are not only talking about the poor people, you are also discussed as a person who have allowed this thing to happen. So you can be rich amongst the poor. If others cannot benefit from your richness, then you are also poor in your mind.
And just to add to that, Augustina, since we're talking about leadership, we do need to start enforcing real consequences, you know,
yes,
for bad behavior, lack of productivity, laziness, corruption, everything that, you know, is counterproductive.
And you know, there's one concept which have been bothering me since I started, you know, having interest in leadership subject. You cannot tell a human being that this is your permanent position. How do you tell a director that you are going to be here permanently? Are they really going to perform? We need to find a way. It can only be addressed if we can really reassess and re-evaluate our performance management system. If you tell a person you are coming to earth permanently, you are not going to die, you are just going to live life. Whether you are making an effort or not, you are going to have a good life. This person won't make an effort. You know, this Eden, misconception of Eden had really crippled a lot of us. And the governments of Africa have helped their citizens to really get crippled by telling them, I'm giving you a strategic position and you are going to be here permanent. You know what they do? They ignore their role, and then they take on their personal interest and they give junk to the employer, who is the government. And this, we not only the government at the high position that suffered, but even the grassroots, because the result we get from this permanent appointment is too painful to really be comprehended, and it's also too painful to bear with, because the person will be paid year in, year out for doing nothing.
That is very powerful, the misconception of Eden. And I think that's another talk that I'd love to hear you give one day, you know, and it applies to all areas of life, you know, being too relaxed and believing that you have so much time and you're set. What are the consequences of that? Finally, Augustinus, can you give us 3 tips to manage ourselves when it comes to our performance?
Well, 3 tips. It's difficult. You know, I'm always a person who speak in a broader context, and the person filter out what they want. But in any case, I'll try to give the tips. The first tip is that you must be an evaluator of yourself. Evaluate the quality of your life. Not only at work, but even your personal life. This will help you position yourself in a way that will make you more attractive to other citizens, to employments that may be available. If we are done with self-assessment, we should then embrace taking calculated risks. You cannot become a good performer if you always want to be comfortable. You know, that comfort zone make you to be lazy. But new opportunities which you take, they teach you new skills which you would never learn if you never took that risk. And lastly, we should have our own effective governance system as a person. You know, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to be transparent and hold yourself accountable. This helps you to move from point A to B, because if you can only benefit it from the company, you will never fully understand as to why companies do that. Instead, you'd think it's a punishment to you.
Very powerful. Augustinus, Mr. Mind, leadership guru, motivational speaker, trainer, author on leadership and emotional intelligence. You are a brilliant African mind. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and perspectives with us. I think these are conversations that we need to be having more often, you know, especially as young people. And what I've loved so much about this conversation is that we're not just talking about the leadership, because we talk about leaders all the time. And sometimes you feel detached when you're not a leader, because, you know, how much can you say about them? But we're looking at future leaders, and you always start with managing yourself. So I really appreciate the tips you've given. I love the idea of the misconception of Eden for you as an individual, and then also your personal governance system. How often do we think about that? You talk about good governance, you know, in a broader context, but what about you as an individual?
Because before you are collective, you are an individual. You know, when we look at an organization, you are first employed alone. And then when they employ other people alone, they bring you together and say, there is now an interoperability, meaning what you do is interlinked to what the other person do. And then in your department, what you do is what is also crucial to other departments. Finance department, HR department, communication department, all these departments are there to work together to fulfill only one goal, to make an organization become effective. So if a single of this relationship fails, all of you have failed.
Right. Very powerful.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again, Augustinus.
I will be excited to talk about any other subject that is of my interest.
The misconception of the Garden of Eden. You think you're here
Yes.
permanently, you know?
Yes.
Paradise.
Yeah.
Very dangerous mindset. I can't wait to talk about that.
Toxic.
Toxic.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Augustinus.